Can you get into what you think the Trump administration is doing now that's so much more authoritarian than what we saw on the woke left?
Well, just in terms of what I've been covering in particular, I spent a lot of time the last few weeks covering the grant cancellations that have happening in the NIH with respects to both gay and transgender research in particular. So you hear the basic party line is a DOGE is here to break apart all the fraud, waste, and abuse, and or all of these transgender studies are based on pseudoscience. But if you actually look at what these studies are, there are things like preventing HIV in people who identify as transgender, preventing pregnancy, unwanted pregnancies in transgender boys, natal girls who identify as male, all of these different ways of trying to approach promoting health equity, which has become such a toxic word on the right. But the idea for health equity is that there are health disparities. There are different groups who experience health outcomes at different rates. So if you want to spend your money effectively and efficiently, ideally you would target to where it's most in need. So, research about HIV prevention is best tailored most effectively to young gay Black men in the South. Those are the people with the highest rates, who have the highest opportunity for there being money well spent of preventing HIV, if indeed that is something you want to do. So it's not as if the Trump administration is going through with a scalpel, rather they're going through with a chainsaw, to use the not so subtle metaphor that Elon Musk himself used at CPAC. They're just busting apart all this stuff clearly based on keywords. We can see that the boilerplate language that was presented to NIH officers to use as rejections for these NIH grants for people who are studying gay or transgender health, with the metadata on that document traces back to somebody who was a lawyer at DOGE. This guy's in his late 20s. Has no medical or scientific training. He's a lawyer. And so there's no substance to the argument that all of this is being done to fight waste, fraud, abuse, or bad science. There's a place for that, and I certainly think there are arguments to be made that money isn't well spent when trying to prevent HIV, that HIV receives a disproportionate amount of funds compared to other conditions such as diabetes. I think there's certainly an argument to be had, but it is absolutely not, you can't give any credit to the Trump administration that they are actually going about this in a way that is thoroughly analyzing all these studies to actually cancel them. I mean, the list of studies that have been canceled, the grants that have been canceled by the NIH, runs about 50 pages at like 6-point font. So do the math there. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars of research down the drain. A lot of it is studies that have been canceled, 3 years into a 5-year study, or they've been following people and gathering data all this time, and then they're just supposed to throw it away. That's money wasted definitively. So it goes against the very ethos of what DOGE supposedly or ostensibly stands for.